So I wanted to understand about the father and son relationship. How should it be, even according to the Bible, Danko?
Wow. If I look at my life, my dad was the first superhero I knew. And first things first, when you go to school, hakuna mtu anaweza piga baba yako. You know, like my dad can beat all of you, plus your fathers. Like you bring them. So my dad was my first superhero.
Yeah.
Up until where you get to an age where you start seeing his weaknesses. And you realize, oh my God, my dad is not actually the hero that I thought him to be. Now, how we were raised was iron fist. Like, I love you, yes. Okay, he will not say it, but he will show it with action. He'll be like, okay, fine. So he will reward your good deeds when you do things. He'll buy your bike. He'll do some of these things. He'll take you out on a Sunday afternoon. You know, you feel good as a firstborn. But it's even more harder for us as firstborns because we were experimental children. I always say that. Yeah, we were not an oops, but we were experimental children.
Yeah.
They didn't have any experience, yet they raised us. So I saw a side of my folks, and especially my dad, that was very hard. That when it came to a point when now I became a father, I didn't know any other way how to raise my daughter, because now I have a daughter.
Yeah.
And there's this person who means everything to me. Like, she has melted my heart. But I'm trying to raise her but I'm messing up. I'm messing up a lot because there are things like she would just run into the sitting room. I don't know, and I've seen this lately even with my friends. Like, she's just playing. She runs into the sitting room. Wewe, nana nakwambia ukimbie kwa nyumba. Like, okay, fine. Anacheza, so what's wrong about kukimbia kwa nyumba? So normally I ask my friends, like, mbona asikimbia kwa nyumba? Anacheza. Would you rather asicheze? I really tried raising my daughter right, and I'm still trying to date. But the thing is, the father-son relationship is very important because you get your very identity from your father. Before you realize that God is your identity, up until that moment you realize God is your identity, your father has been your identity. So who my father was and what he did, his strengths, his weaknesses. So it's very, very key and very important as a father to understand that if you cannot handle your emotions as a father, you're transferring that to your son. If you are abusive and aggressive in the house, your son will be abusive and aggressive. The day I disrespect my wife in front of my son is the day my son will think low of women. And when he's now 18 or 19 and he's treating his sister badly, then you wonder where it comes from, and you're like, who taught you that? No, you didn't teach them that, but they saw you do that. When you demean even people, or when you're in the house just talking, the conversation you're having in their presence.
Yeah.
You know, I'm talking about, this guy, jamaa anakuanga ni mjinga sana. And the children are picking up, they're knowing, oh, Uncle Yobs, anakuanga mjinga. Anakuanga mjinga. So you say these things and you don't know you're talking about in their presence. So they will pick that up very, very fast. So up until the point when I realized God is my identity, my father had been my identity. So it's a constant conflict from then on, trying to unlearn some things and now learning from the Bible. Now the Bible is the best manual you can ever have for life. Aki. And let me tell you how plainly I do it. I may not have the scriptures at my fingertips. But because of Google, I Google some of these things. I say, what does the Bible say about anger? I'm feeling very angry. So are there instances? So you see instances of when men were angry. What were the circumstances? What happened? What were the repercussions? And then now the Bible outlines how, yes, be angry, but in your anger do not sin. Like, how? What do you mean? Like, I feel like shouting. So you keep researching and finding out. That's the best manual ever. So in a Christian setting, fathers have an even bigger mandate, like him now. Yeah. As much as he's a preacher and a man of God, let me tell you, the one thing that can cause him to fail in life is if he does not transfer the virtues of God into his son. And that means stepping out of who he is as a man and accepting the very essence of God to flow through you to your children and offspring. So it is very key for fathers out there. And as we're celebrating Father's Day, something came to me and I figured, because you see, men are blamed for so many things. Like I know there are parents out there who are called deadbeats, but they are in fear. They don't know how to go back home. They don't know how to reach out to their daughters. They don't know how to reach out to their sons. But we'll always blame them because we are seeing things from that other perspective. There's a child who's being neglected, but who has sat down to understand why is he being neglected? Is it on purpose? So men are out there timid. They're not taking up. Today I had someone saying, you team up with God. That's the best thing I've had this season. Team up with God. Tell God, by the hapa siwezi. You go before me, prepare the way for me, and then you can do it. So the bond between a father and a son, oh man, that's the beginning of everything.
Wow, wow. And maybe you basically can tell us even how your relationship with your father was.
The moment Danko said his dad was a superhero, I'm like, you need to meet my dad.
He was the real
He was the leader of the superheroes.
Captain of superheroes. My dad is a cop. He's still a cop. You know, he used to drop us as he's going to work. Drop me and my brother to school. Ametushika hivi, amehanga napa full uniform. Yo, as in, I used to enter in that school compound. I'm like, tawalimu waguna kichora.
Yeah.
You know, and even when it comes to bullies, we never like really got to undergo any bullying because you know wanaonanga nani anatuacha hapo hivyo shule na wanaonanga kika mjioni kutuchukua. So we ukicheza, and then back then cops were respected. It's not like today yo nothing my dad did was wrong in my eyes. You know, as a kid, everything he did was it's the way it's supposed to be done, you know. Kids would tell me, hey, my dad jana alifanya tulichinja kuku tulichinja hivi. I'm like, hivyo si hivyo kuku uchinjwa. My dad anaifanya hivi. You know, and it was really epic. And ilifika at some point growing up with my dad, the relationship was cool. He would come home, change that uniform and now be a dad, you know. We'd play, could discipline. He was the best. Hata wewe mwenyewe ukiona venye ana handle criminals hutaki kukuwa criminal, you know. And so it was cool. And then eventually when I was going to high school, my parents divorced, you know. And then he wasn't there for like a long time, even hadi sahi tu kuna kuanga na ka distance. And it's sometimes I try to see the things from his point of view, and I don't know whether he knows what to do. He's just confused. You know, he has another family now, and it makes even matters even more complicated. But I have learned a lot ever since my parents divorced. And first it hit me so hard. It hit me so hard. I was like, you know what? This is how marriages end. I never want to be married, you know. I don't want even anything to do with girls and everything. But I have so much growth has happened to me as a person personally, and now I am, as we speak, I mean, you know, I am the bigger person in trying to create that relationship with my dad now. I reach out to him as much as I can. I try to go and see him as much as I can, and I hold on to those memories za kitambo akituundia hizo magari na nini, and he is not a Christian. I have never seen him in church ever all my life. And I think now God brings, you know, other father figures in your life that, you know, you get to learn different aspects that you didn't see from your father from them, and God has done that for me. And you know, a relationship with God has really been important. I didn't see the importance of it from my dad's perspective, but I see it from other father figures that God has presented to me, and yeah, I think it's epic. The father-son relationship is super important. You get to learn a lot, and not even from like the lessons zenye anakupea, just the bond is important. And yeah, that's what I'd like to say.
Yeah, okay. And just to say about the father wound, there's this thing called father wound, where you are wounded maybe by your dad. Either your dad passed on when you were a child, or either your dad was there but not there for you, really. And I love this Bible story about the prodigal son. I feel like it's the best to just describe how the love of the father and the love of a son. Like the son messed up and then ran away from home. You know, came back and didn't think that the father would meet him halfway. So I'd love to hear from you, maybe from you, Danko, to begin on how to deal with father wounds and how does it affect our relationship with God and what do we do?
Wow.
Yeah.
Father wounds, that's a very wide topic to deal with because, like I said, your father is your first identity. So if you grew up in an environment that exposed vices or that caused you not to express yourself, and you end up harboring things that happened in your past. And mostly what happens is, as a young man, the number one thing, because for some reason we know how to deal with being hard. Like we could handle it. What we couldn't handle is what he was talking about, like neglect, like you're here and you're no more. So either death or you just walked out or something happened and you're no longer there. So this boy has no one else to look up to, no covering. You know, you might have all the uncles in the world, but if your father is not there, then that's something else. I got the privilege to be in my father's life up until 2019 when he passed on. And I never, by 2019 I was a grown-up, as in I'm a guy with my own family, like I have my career, but I never knew his importance, like his absence would really hit me the way it did at almost 40, and I'm like, I can't believe it, like why am I feeling this? Like, I know we never used to talk all the time, but his absence is what I can't even deal with. So there's that kind of a wound when he's not there. But now there are those wounds of the things they did. I remember I was so conflicted as a young man. I was very rebellious. And this, of course, came because he was a hard man. Like, I would go to church, spend time. I would go for keshas and he would beat me because, why are you coming back? As in, how is it that I'm getting to the house before you? Like, you should meet me as I'm coming into the house. So, and that used to make me feel so bad. So even in school, I never used to concentrate on my studies. I used to be brilliant, yes, but he'd come for visiting, I'd be number 3. The next time he comes, I'm number 89. Like, I was like that, flip-flopping. I never used to study because I always felt like I needed my freedom. I needed to just be me because everything I do is a mistake. Everything I do is a mistake. But you see, I'm a firstborn, so he was experimenting and also trying to figure out, how do you raise boys? I don't want to raise boys the way our father raised us. So I need to be hard, I need to beat him. And there was something about, what was this about, like, kuchapa ndio inaku straighten. So even in school, I grew up in an era where caning was like the mother of it all. Like, as in, I grew up in a school, I went to school in a place called El Bagon. And what used to happen, one day the teachers would just wake up. It was a boys' school. They would wake up, you'd wake up and go for breakfast. When you leave breakfast, all the dining hall tables are taken to the fields in a pango, even like a U. For no apparent reason. It's in the morning, 5, you run, you come out as classes, all the teachers are holding canes. So you climb the first table. So you slide. As you're sliding, they are caning you. And that messed us.
That was abuse.
That was abuse. It ruined us.
They created
that fear so they created monsters. And that's what I'm saying. So there are so many things that we're not dealing with, but you can imagine now such a scenario and it's in the home where my dad, hey boss, you were beaten for anything. And your mom knew. So my mom knew, so she would protect us, but when she needed you to pay for something,
to learn something,
she would wait until dad comes. Then her mood would change. And we were laughing. And we were like, hey, what's the homework? Hey, kunyeni chai, and you attack. But when dad walks in, she nunas. So that she can be asked, hey, what's going on? Then she'd say, uliza kijana yako. So when dad turns and says,
nini?
Kijana ulifanya nini? And when you hear a child doing that, already I'm a panic and he's looking for a lie, he's looking for a way out.
Trying to figure out.
So that's, you can imagine growing up, and my dad was not even a policeman like his dad, but it was a military setting, like una chap. So we harbored so many father wounds, but I realized that one actually needs a lot of help, including professional counseling and therapy, to be honest, because there are things you will do that will be the basis, that's the foundation, the wounds that you got from your father. So when you even get to places you hear you get to a place where your friend, the father is telling them they love them, you're like, or hey, I want such kind of a father.
Yeah.
So basically, I think dealing with father wounds is one of the things that even now, like I cannot say that this is what you need to do, but it needs a lot of assistance, and if you can get even therapy, that would be really great. It's hard for us who have lost fathers, because then that means you have to sit down with an empty chair and express yourself sometimes. But hey, whatever it takes, you have to get rid of it, because that is the root of so many things. You meet thugs, nini, when you get right deep into the issues, you find out kumbe there's a wound that they didn't deal with. Like, I was never a confident child. I was very good at music and drama. Certificates from down there to here. But I was never confident, because I never felt enough in front of my dad. I was always that guy, unalia kama kisichana. So the first opportunity I got to beat someone and prove to my dad that I'm a man, I went to prison. I went to jail. I was locked up because I almost killed someone. I was called to school, you know, and it's crazy because I want my dad to feel proud and say that you're proud of me. So, father wounds, that's a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And if it's not dealt with, it can explode.
Wow, wow. Pasi, what do you think?
Father wounds, it's very interesting. You know, in life, if you deal with people, you will be wounded by people.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we need to accept.
Sad reality.
As in, issues are synonymous with people. Wherever you put people, there will be issues. If this room has no people, it has no issues. You put 2 or 3 people here, there will be an issue somewhere.
Yeah.
Something was misplaced, something. And it's normal. It's human. So, even as we look at father wounds, we need to understand that they are men also. They're human beings, as in they are prone to mistakes. I think there is a expectation that the society set of men that was so high that when men are unable to reach to it, almost men feel like failures. And I agree with both of them. You know, there is no, as in, I don't know, maybe there are some people who are given. I have not met men who have a manual, who have figured life. You know? Men are just bold and put a brave face because life has to happen. The reality is, if you sit down with men, most men are wondering, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I, there was no manual or model that was given to men and told them, this is how you become a man. This is how you do this. And some of the ills that men have, maybe are cultural, societal, and those kind of things. So you'll find that we have had a lot of father wounds because men are trying to figure themselves out.
Right.
And they don't cut themselves the slack of also saying, I'm trying to figure it out. Because I don't know anyone whose dad was like, even me, I don't know. They always were like, I'll tell you tomorrow. You ask them something, they put a brave face and they'll be like, we'll figure it out.
That's right.
I'm doing something about it. They will not tell you that. So with that, every person has a level of wounding from a father. Yeah. And when now you think about it, how do we deal with those things as individuals? I think I had one of the best dads ever, I don't think I had, he was a superhero. To me, he was my dad, you know?
Yeah.
And in the early years, we spent a lot of time. This is the one thing I think we have to value as a generation, and men have to understand. That time is more important than things. In my young years, as in we spent time, we used to go to Ngong race, because you know he'll just come and be like, twende ingia kwa gari, twende tukaone farasi. You know, naenda garage, twende. Tunachota maji, ingia kwa gari, twende tukachote maji. You know, those moments meant everything. It's just spending time with my dad. And as we mentioned earlier, the most important way of teaching children is by example, is by being there and being an example to them. When you're not there, they look for another example that they can follow, whether it's a TV, whether it's a movie, whatever it is. They will try and replace. Because teaching, I don't believe, has been passing down morals and passing down culture. It's not just by words. You are unable to pass those things down by words. So with that in mind, for me, time was the most important thing. So for me, one of the things that when my dad, as I grew, he became more busy, he was not available, he was not there. I think that for me was where the impact was. Now, even when he's around, he's like with his drinking buddies. I don't have that time for, let's go to, Ngongres, because, I remember some of my favorite moments with my dad was like, there was a day there was a Nigeria versus Harambee Stars in Kasarani, and he was like, let's go. Man, the atmosphere, that whole thing to me meant a lot. Then after that, we went and he had one or two buddies. We sat down, we ate nyama choma. I can remember. And those are the moments, the bonds that, overcome even when he does something wrong. Now I'm like, I'm able to overlook it. That's, for me, the biggest value of a man to his family or to the society is being available. Yeah? That you're not lost in your own world of responsibility, that you're not there. Yeah? That for me was the greatest value. So for father wounds, there are definitely some things my dad spoke and I took them to heart and they were painful. And but over time, what I told myself is, he said it, but I don't think he really meant it. You have to rationalize some things because surely, if he meant it, we wouldn't be there. But he said it. So words are very important also. The words of our father. And I believe most people are formed by the actions or the lack of actions and the words they spoke. So for me, I really grew with, I enjoyed a lot with my dad gave me freedom, as in, me, I learned everything from my dad. Some of them were social ills, my dad will be like, chukua kachupa, pewa kachupa kabia hapo, wewe, as he used to drink at home, we used to chinja mbuzi every time we find an occasion to like chinja mbuzi, he's like, to chinja mbuzi, But to me, that was freedom. And I thank God for having that freedom with my dad. But when it came to, he never expressed himself that much. Unlike most fathers who beat their sons, I only remember once my dad ever beat me. Once. He was like my defense. Nikifanya tabia mbaya shule nifukuzwe, I'm like, nisirudi na maadhi. I'll be like, when is dad around? I want to go with my dad, because he'll be like, he will speak for me. And that for me was such a positive, encouragement. Like if I go to school with my dad, he's like, okay, amefanya nini? Mwechaneni na mtoto, wacha arudi kwa darasa. Nitaongea na yeye baadaye. Then later he'll not even beat me, he'll just sit me down. And we'll talk. And for me, that was a great, I think I had a great dad, although towards the end, we never spent time. And time for me, I think, is the greatest asset a father can give to his children. That's spending time. The greatest thing is my dad passed, and I think his absence, had more impact in my life negatively than anything he has ever said or ever done. His absence was the biggest negative impact. Because responsibilities came out was not, sometimes we take for granted, even these fathers who seem not to have figured themselves out, they take a lot of responsibilities. Yeah? So when he was not there, now you are consulted for things, you are like, I'm not ready for these things.
Yes.
Me, I don't want to take responsibility over these things. What's happening right here? And that, for me, his absence was the biggest impact ever. The other things, I think one of the only comments is, one day my dad looked at me and he said, "Wewe utapata pesa siku gani wewe?" And I think that word became, it was a pain. Every time I don't have money, I feel like he's still talking to me. "Wewe utapata pesa siku gani?" And that's the value, that's the impact of a dad, is because they are models, as in they are role models, not just by choice, it's by nature. And that's why I feel for even people who grow without fathers. They're single women with children. Man, look for a male figure that your sons can model from. Because the absence of a father, I think, is the greatest negative impact that can happen to a son, to a child. Rather than the things they say. As long as people have conversations, we can overcome the pains of, when your dad is there and he's hurting you, at least he's there. The level of hurt we can maybe discuss. If it's violence, now that becomes a very different situation. But if it's small things that end up hurting your emotion, hurting the way you feel, the value of him being there is more than just the small. It outweighs the value of the small things that happen, unless it's a major issue. And for me, that's why I feel for people who don't grow with fathers there, it's a serious gap. It's a serious gap, because most men here, what we do as men, either we learned from someone, and by watching someone we followed, someone we lived with, things we picked. And you see, that's the thing I was saying. There is no manual. There is no right way of being a man until we define what it is to do right as a man. There isn't. That's why you will find the men who are doing things because the example they had is growing. That's what they found. So when it comes to wounds, it's easy to deal with the wounds as long as the person is available and you're able to deal with them. For people who have those wounds, my advice is, your father is alive. Go talk to them. Tell them, "Buyu bana, uliniumiza." Me, I wish I had that conversation with my dad. Mwambie bana, kuna kitu ulisemanga ilinihurt. But we never got to that level. And I think sometimes we idolize the heart more than the availability of the father. I think we need to appreciate the availability of that father there. And when someone hurts you, if someone else hurt you and they're not your dad or your mom, most likely you know what you do. You tell them. By the way, niumiza. But when it comes to our fathers, we take an offense, we take a corner, and we think, let me prove myself. Rather than just telling them, "Hey, Buddha, mbuyu, Buddha nilikubaia kachai leo. Kuna kitu ulisema, yenyewe iliniumiza." And that's what I'm trying to teach my son. What I'm trying to teach my son is, I would rather you tell me the truth, whether I would like it or not.
Wow, thank you.
So for me, I'll beat my son for not telling me the truth, rather than for doing something wrong. Because I'm trying to tell him, tell me the truth.
Yes. No matter how.
If I hurt you, come and tell me, "Dad, there's something you said and I was not happy." Then we can discuss that emotion. And I feel like most father wounds are because people are not willing to talk.